Shalom. Shalom. Okay, honor, praise, and glory be to the Heavenly Father. In the name of His Son, Yahweh Bashmi Al-Shah, Muhammad Al-Shakah. All right, okay. Double honors to the Thawari Yahweh Al-Shah for the Holy Spirit. Who's giving me utterance and has always given me utterance to be on this faith, and do lessons, what I'm saying, that in hopes that can be deemed by the Heavenly Father, in the name of His Son, to edify, exhort, admonish, and edify, exhort, slakia, and admonish the flock, the sheep, the believers of Yahweh Shemel Shah, and all true faith and sincerity. Double honors to the apostles, the elder, hopefully elect elder apostles slated to be saved. Lord willing, start with those at the Great Millstone Church on down to the rest that may be out here applying under the same doctrine, because there's one doctrine, and this in fact is the true doctrine. Much peace and many blessings to you, brothers, also teaching this truth and all true faith and sincerity, giving all diligence, and much peace and many blessings to the believers, you men, women, children of the Israelite race out here. All right, that's the end on this state. All right, and shalom to elect, the 1/3. So yeah, jumping straight into this, which I could have just did, but that's going into what, the tactics, teaching, talking points, and this 134th volume, which we'll be covering about up and down, which we'll be covering in this 134th volume. Yeah, tactics, teaching. All right, talking points. You don't have to speak to everything that's in the verse that's outside your point. You know what I'm saying? Now, especially if, everything besides your point is null and void. Now if you're just teaching and be teaching, when you go into the scriptures, this brother that teach, all right, that's, have been pretty much, put in the lot of teaching, you've been signed off on, all right, because there's an order to this. Shalom, all right. Now, when you talk, when you're teaching, you pretty much just edifying, probably just explaining a verse, bring a verse out, you be like, yeah, and that's talking about, and it's talking about, now when you're teaching, it's times when you have talking points, all right? You have talking points, and your point is basically when you're only talking about your point, okay? Now, I want to actually see if it's a definition to this statement, this phrase, even though I can explain it myself. Yeah. Now, when you go to how to write talking points are examples. It says examples of categories that are helpful when writing talking points. Now, it's different when you actually verbally expressing them, which is what we're going into. Include your mission, your personal story, the result of your suggestion, and a call to action that's besides the point, right? The more organized, so this is an example of talking points. It says the more organized your talking points are, the better you'll be able to deliver a compelling and concise argument or speech, which is the point of talking points, because you're trying to what? Deliver a compelling and concise argument, right? Or speech. If you're trying to show somebody, no, bro, this is wrong. No, sister, this is wrong. This is what this means. This is how you are to go about that. This couldn't be that because this says this. You see, now we use verses to do that. Now imagine if you get a verse, right, that has a point in it that points to why something couldn't be this, like, or couldn't be understood like that, or it couldn't be meaning this, whatever, right? Say that point was in that verse and you talked about everything and you was like, okay, let's go here. Now, say that's what your agenda is in a moment. Say you talk about everything else, right, around that before getting to that point. That will make your point dull. You see what I'm saying? And it will be less conceivable. You see? AKA compelling. When you go into the word compelling, it says captivating, okay, gripping, let's see, mesmerizing, hypnotic, because that's what points do, right? When you're trying to get somebody to get a point is a talking point is gonna if it's going about the right way and you just pretty just simply a talking point is gonna captivate, it's gonna grip, it's gonna it's a spell binding, it's gonna entrance, it's gonna transfix. Like when you locking somebody in to understanding, if you just hitting all the talking points, which we bring out the understanding right what of life through the scriptures of whatever or whatever a breakdown may mean or whatever of a parable that was said that may be in question. We going into that, and ultimately another thing could be the message that the Lord wants to give to us. If we go into that through just simply bringing out talking points. And if we're doing it the right way, you will be what? You will be basically entrancing these people. That's what you're trying to do. Oh, mesmerizing. You see, hypnotic, mesmeric, absorbing, fascinating, thrilling, irresistible. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make the point. You're trying to make whatever it is you're trying to convey irresistible, convincing, persuasive, cogent, irresistible, powerful, potent, strong, plausible, credible, effective. All right. Irrefutable. See? And you'll be able to do that with just sticking to the talking points. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into this. Okay, so once again, the point of doing it, it says the better you'll be able to deliver keeping your talking points how they're supposed to be, the better you'll be able to deliver, right? This is on indeed.com. The better you'll be able to deliver a compelling and concise argument, right? Or speech. And that's another part of a talking point is to be what? Concise, short, meaning synonyms, short, brief, to the point, short and sweet. You see? Nutshell. You can't do that. You're horrible at proving your points. And even if you make something short and sweet, that don't mean that's a point proven. Points proven is if they well proved, right? Meaning convincing or compelling and concise, and compelling meaning irrefutable, right? And concise meaning that's what a talking point is supposed to consist of. And concise meaning what? Short and brief. You see, short, brief, short and sweet, crisp. You see? That's your talking point being proved. Just because it's short and sweet, don't get that in your head that you proved your point. Because what if it wasn't compelling? So it has to be compelling, convincing, and to help that be the case, you got to know what you're talking about, but also what keep everything concise. Only everything around your point gets cut out. You see, when you have to do that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get into this. This is I had a few scriptures in mind, but I didn't get to the lesson right away. So this is by the Spirit. This is This is Sirach 33 and 29. Be not excessive toward any, and without discretion do nothing. The opposite of excessive is concise. So you don't be, you are to be concise when you're supposed to be, and that's when you're teaching, trying to prove a point. You don't have to speak to everything in a verse to bring your point to make the point understood. We don't have to do that. as being excessive. You don't have to do that. So to tighten up, these are tactics teaching. When you're trying to prove a point, only speak to what, and you using the verses to do it. Only speak to what uh, you know. How can I say it? Only speak to the point that's in that verse. It's like pow, 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 pow. You got days when you see brothers do that really well, and you got days where, and you just do that in general, but you got days when you see brothers don't do that with them. You see what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to speak to everything. See, ain't about nothing else. And you have to understand that with teaching. It's not that's actually how you're supposed to go about, teaching. When you're proving a point, it is to be compelling and concise, meaning irrefutable. You get that information, you gather things that show that are irrefutable, and then you keep it to just that. So now there's no wiggle room. You know, I had another scripture in mind. Let's see. Yeah, that's basically the point, Short and sweet to the point. I had other scriptures, but nothing is coming to mind right now. So yeah. Sirach 33 and 29, be not excessive towards any, and without discretion do nothing. So that should be able to help brothers that's, in a lot of teaching. These are tactics for teaching. These tactics can roll over to your life. You'll be better in conversation, articulating yourself, being understood, conversing, you'll be better at dialogue. You know what I'm saying? And in that, it's all the things that was mentioned, you know, irresistible, irrefutable, mesmerizing. So it says spell binding. Now, obviously, we ain't doing witchcraft, but the scriptures do say, if you, that's the spirit. Well, y'all got some shut. Watch this. Listen to this. This is 2 Corinthians 10 and 5. Beautiful. It says, casting down imaginations and everything that exalted against itself, everything that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, Yahweh Bashmiel Shai, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach. So that's a bind right there. Now, how do you go about doing that? How do you bring thoughts into captivity, aka bound, right? The thoughts really just representing a mind. How do you bring a mind, right? How do you bind the mind and the doctrine of Yahweh Bashmiel Shah only being true? By what? Using these teaching tactics. And one of the things will be, when you're proving a point, is keeping it short and brief, or making it convincing, right? And concise, which is short and brief, to the point. Which you should be able to see that now in this verse, because this verse is telling you that's exactly what's to be. Casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach. This verse is telling you that this doctrine is to be made convincing. It's supposed to convince you. You're supposed to be convincing with this doctrine. This doctrine is supposed to bind you. It's supposed to bind the mind. It's supposed to be compelling. It's supposed to be irresistible, irrefutable, mesmerizing. That's what this is to do, if you're going about it the right way. And the right way to go about it is your talking points. Having your talking points how they're supposed to be. If you want somebody to believe something that needs to be believed, what would be the way to doing that? What would be the way to do that? Well, the same way that the Lord is telling us how we are to do it. You see, you use all these different things in the scriptures to figure out how to make what he clearly telling us is supposed to be. He wants to bind the minds of men and women and children, and bring, you know what I'm saying, to like, you know. So that's basically it. So yeah, if you, I'll say this: if you talk right, you know, people are gonna be bound. For those that's supposed to be in, I'll say, if you spoke rightly, you know, if your tactics is on point, you should end up with this being the case. You should be able to cast down imaginations, you know, an imagination being a brother or sister coming up thinking they can celebrate Christmas. For example, I got a demonstrated example. Isaiah 10 and 1, Salakia, Jeremiah 10 and 1. Straight to the point. I'm gonna actually start at 1. Say they so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians. So watch this. Well, what about Christmas? Jeremiah 10 and 1. Hear ye the word which the Lord Yahweh speaketh unto you, O house of Israel. Yeah, the Lord, you know, this is what he wants us to know. The house of Israel are you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, brother and sister. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven. Now the heathen are everyone else outside of the Israelites, which is who you are. So that's what this is talking about, right? Be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them, right? Examples would be Chinese, white, actual Africans, because we're not African. So there are all these other people, right? Japanese, whatever. For the customs of the people, so these are the people the Lord is addressing. He said, don't be like them. He says what? For the customs of the people are vain, right? What's the customs? The things they get into, their traditions, their heritage, right? He says their heritage, their customs, and their traditions, right? Including holidays, right? What they celebrate. For the customs of the people are vain, meaning empty, nothing comes out of it. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe, they deck it with silver and with gold. You see, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. So a tree gets cut out, they deck it with silver and with gold, and they decorate it. What does that sound like? Christmas. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that it move not. You see? So it says, this is an example of what the Lord is meaning, that this is pretty much, this is Christmas, and this is a custom of the heathens, which we are not to follow. So the Lord don't want us celebrating Christmas. Period. Because what else does it sound like? Nothing else. Okay? So the Lord don't want us celebrating Christmas. It's that simple. You know? And if I said that right, that should be convincing. Okay, yeah, this is literally talking about Christmas. You know? And if I had to go to the depths of it, I'll say they deck it with silver and with gold. You get a tree, you buy the tree, and you put the ornaments on it, the gold balls, etc. The little wreaths or whatever, the little wrap, you know, the confetti looking stuff, and they fasten it with nails with nails and with hammers that it move not. Some people actually hammer their trees into their home floors. Most Jake don't do that. They gotta what? Screw it into that prop to where it don't move. That's talking about the Christmas tree. So if you jump back to verse 2, thus said the Lord Yahweh, learn not the way of the heathen. You see, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. You see, so we're not supposed to be celebrating Christmas, because that's a custom, that's a holiday of the heathen. See, so that's it. That should be simple, concise, and to the point, like that. Okay, and that's an example of this. 2 Corinthians 10 and 5, casting down imagination. That's an imagination. And every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of God. You know, the Lord doesn't acknowledge Christmas to be celebrated. You see, because it's fake. It's nothing in it. It's empty. You know, it says, and bringing into captivity every thought. You know, to the obedience of a Mashiach, and that's making these people slaves, make people supposed to become slaves to this doctrine, this way of thinking, of understanding, of seeing. And the way you're going to be able to do that is through this one teaching tactic, which is talking points, and having your talking points what? Compelling and short and brief, just straight to the point, nothing else. So with that, I'm going to give honor, praise, and glory to Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Father Shem, Yahweh Shah, Shakah, and through this you should see improvement. And you can roll this over to your real life, improvement in your teaching, and people being convinced, or you being convinced, and I'll say, shalom.